Well, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and this is the Raging Verbalist. Raging Verbalist number 83. Hard to believe how fast it goes and what happens. For those of you who've never been on a Raging Verbalist, well, you're in for a treat. This is going to be a really interesting one. And how this works is that I have the lovely Sandra, and we'll bring her on just a second, and she will be asking the questions as if you were asking these questions of me, and we'll go over our topic for today. So without any delay, Sandra, welcome to Raging Verbalist.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
Doing great. We're going to have a great show today. All right, so just dive right in, get us going, and let's get the topic on the table. Put the shrimp on the Barbie, the however else we want to talk about it. So.
Okay, so I looked over FreedomFest 2021, and I know that you don't usually talk about politics, so why talk about FreedomFest?
So for those of you who don't know what FreedomFest is, and I know there are a lot of you because I think the biggest attendance that I've ever seen was like 3,500 people. So if you take 3,500 people out of 7+ billion, it's a small percentage, but we're a hardy crew. Is that FreedomFest is really important because it really talks about things like libertarian ideals. And I guess I got fascinated about FreedomFest and thought about going to it. And I'll tell you more about how I got there, but I can tell you that it's a lot of fun, and you meet a lot of interesting people. And if you want something that's going to kind of work in your brain, we'll do that. Now, as far as the political side, yes, we are crossing and tiptoeing over the line into some of the politics of this. For those of you who don't know me, who don't know what my value system is that I would kind of lay it out this way, is that I'm a libertarian, hence going to FreedomFest. If you don't know what a libertarian is, I will define it for you simply. Libertarian is someone who can probably piss off both somebody from the left and the right simultaneously, which I always look at as a double win. You're making quota. And the next thing is that I'm a capitalist. So I talk about money, I do business. If you haven't figured out that this is all about show me the money, you may have stumbled into the wrong place. And that's pretty cool because at FreedomFest, we can talk about those kinds of things. And there's some pretty interesting ideas, some pretty wacky ideas, but always some alternatives to whatever else is going on. And this does not necessarily fit with FreedomFest, but I'm also a hawk. So if you don't know what that is, well, we'll leave that for another day. But yes, that's kind of like why we're going to talk about FreedomFest today, is to make everybody aware, because we're going to be there.
All right. So when was the first time you went to FreedomFest?
So the first time that I went there, my brother Michael and I went there, was 2013. And this was an interesting time because, we had been really aimed at being business guys. And what we decided is that we wanted to see if we could find, because it was, if you think it's crazy today, it was crazy then. And it's still crazy out there. And just decided that we needed to kind of find an outlet for this. And we decided we'd go to FreedomFest in 2013. That was after the re-election of Barack Obama, and said, hey, we got to see if we can find some sanity in this world. And so we went the very first time. And when we went, we had actually funded and put up a website called itsapaulworld.com, which is now being revamped and will be ready before FreedomFest. And it was because looking at all the politicians out there, thought about Rand Paul as being a person that should run for president. By the way, he got slaughtered in 2016, but why give up on something when you have that? So, but we are revamping the website now, so that will be happening relatively soon. But that was the first time, 2013, and probably the most interesting thing is just the variety of people who are there. Typically, if you go to something that's political, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, but if you go like to conservative, forums and stuff, I mean, everybody is really around a tight circle. And when we went to FreedomFest, we saw so many different people, and it was really interesting. the eclectic nature of that list. So that 2013 was our maiden voyage, our first time there.
All right. And so why did you go to Freedom Fest?
Probably the biggest motivation is just really not happy with what was going on in the political realm, but more importantly, how it affected business and businesses that I was involved in and my clients, and just thought, maybe I can find like-minded people, and that these thoughts in my head just didn't make me this person who's just kind of totally unaware of what was going on. And so that was our motivation. The motivation was to talk to people who maybe would agree with us more and learn some things. And without a doubt, we did. We found a bunch of people who were much more akin to our way of thinking, and that was a big plus. It felt like we really made some interesting inroads at that point in time.
Oh, okay. So what are you going to be doing at Freedom Fest this year?
So at Freedom Fest this year, since we are relaunching the It's a Paul World website in its new iteration, is that we are going to be, first off, we're going to be doing a lot of interviews of people who are speakers. So if you ever wanted to go see a bunch of world-class speakers at what I think is a very, very good price, Freedom Fest is a great great way to do it. And this year we'll be going out there and we'll be doing lots of interviews, and we'll be talking to a lot of people, and also bringing the book. And of course, this brings up, what we should talk about, which is we'll be having copies of the Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 Minutes. Just takes 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. My co-conspirator, co-author will be there with me. So Gabe Batista will be there, and we'll be signing books for people who want to come up and get some books. No, they're not free. And but we'll be doing that. And also I'll be doing lots of interviews and talking to a lot of interesting thought leaders. We're really at some pretty interesting times. And the question I have for every single one of you is, well, what are the things that you're going to do differently? So when you come out of the pandemic, it is, 80% of the world, or 80, let's just use the US, but 80% are going to be sluggish and kind of trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of belief that we're going to go back to the way it was. Never going to happen. So one of the things that we're obviously looking for is, what is the new direction and the new place we're going to go? There's some pretty interesting trends that are going to take place over the next 3, 5, or 10 years. And do not be disheartened, because I believe that there's going to be some positive changes. It may not feel like that at times, but there's going to be some really interesting positive changes. And because of that, this is, my reasons for going to Freedom Fest and getting my head wrapped around it. Also, if you have not gone to positiontowinbook.com, go check it out. Go join the Facebook group. You get some free things there. You can also buy the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold. It's available at every major digital platform, Apple, Kindle, and Nook. And then, of course, we have Remote Work for a Better World, which is exclusively on the Amazon Kindle platform, which talks about exactly how to do, Zoom and more than that, how to do virtualization of your business. So do all of those things, and you'll get, I think, some positive. And go check out It's a Paul World, all one word. It's a Paul World. I know it's a mouthful, but it's a paulworld.com. Go check that out. We're not up and running yet, so give it a little bit of time, but go check it out. And hopefully we're going to get, Rand Paul to talk to us about, what his aspirations are, because, Rand 2024.
All right. So can you describe what Freedom Fest is?
I would say that Freedom Fest is this kind of interesting collection of all these various groups, and there's a lot of different groups. And Mark Skousen, who started this whole thing, and Joanne, who runs the film festival, and the whole Skousen family, a whole troop of them show up to kind of run it. I would say what Freedom Fest is they created an environment which allows people to come in and share ideas, thoughtful ideas. By the way, if you don't want to hear something that will make you maybe a little bit nervous or a little cringeworthy or something like that, is all I can say is that you should, if that bothers you, then don't show up. But if you want to have vigorous discussions, vigorous debates with people who are smart, who read, who have a lot of interesting ideas going through their head, so that's what Freedom Fest is all about. And it's interesting because this year, unlike all the other ones, and last year there wasn't one, boo hiss, because of course, the pandemic. It will be in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I have no idea why on airplane mode that would go off. So anyway,
They're calling to make sure you're going to be there.
yeah, from above, yes. So I would describe Freedom Fest as it's part movie festival, part lectures that take place, part bookstore. They have booths so you can go talk to people with various interesting ideas. You'll be able to talk to people and meet people that you would never get an opportunity, in my experience, to actually meet with people. Because normally when you go to a big conference, the headline speaker comes up or people come up on stage and speak. And as soon as they're done, it's whisked away in the limo and they're gone. But because of Freedom Fest, I've met a lot of very interesting people, honored to meet Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, just, a whole variety of people. You have to see who's going to show up in South Dakota, but I would describe it as probably in the ancient days is that somebody would pitch this big giant tent and all these various, very different people would show up and exchange ideas, exchange what they believe are ways to improve the world. And it has grown. So part of me talking about on Raging Verbalist is to encourage you. And in fact, we'll have a link on how to join us at Freedom Fest if you so desire to do it. It's a very interesting group of people.
All right. So who attends Freedom Fest?
That was the most surprising aspect of it because I showed up thinking that I would meet a bunch of libertarians. I've known libertarians. And what I found out is there were people who were gold bugs. And if you don't know what a gold bug is, it's not something that you have to beat out of a mattress or something. But a gold bug is a person who thinks that we should be back on the gold standard, should look at auditing the Federal Reserve and doing all those things. So we had the hard money metal guys, or hard metal guys. And then, by the way, it was one of the first places that I really heard people talking about Bitcoin at several of them. And I don't know if she's going to be there this year. And she goes by the name of Bitcoin Girl. And Naomi was there, and she, if I had only bought when she said it's probably a good time to buy Bitcoin, who knows if I'd be sitting here right now. But I was exposed to that. Also, people who have political views, people who follow, Ayn Rand, people who follow, the Austrian School of Economics. Lots of interesting ideas and discussions. People who are cause people, legalization of drugs, legalization of things that other things people don't think about, trying to make their voices heard. So it's a very eclectic group, and it is all ages, by the way. I've met people who were in their teens all the way up to, met a guy who was 91 years old. And I guess, this is better than hanging out at the rest home because he was sitting there, fire and brimstone and talking about stuff. So very diverse group of people. And if you, I met a filmmaker from Australia and had a great conversation with him and talked to him about how he developed his style and what he was trying to do. So if you want to go meet some interesting people, first off, I would say show up. And the most important thing was once you show up is to engage and talk to as many people as you can. And if you don't meet people, it's because you're not trying or doing any effort at all.
All right. So who should go to Freedom Fest and why should they?
So I always suggest to business owners, if you don't understand that every time a regulation is passed, it's a tax against business. For all of you out there who thinks that we should just have, this is sensible regulation, no one ever tells you what it costs you to live up to that regulation. I think back of a specific specific form and status that I was trying to get for a supplier for me. And it cost us a ton of money to get this thing filled out. But if you read at the bottom that the federal government said that this would take 45 minutes to fill this form out, it took us 5 weeks and $9,000 in legal fees to get the material together to fill that out. So if you're sick and tired of all of that, so if you're a business owner and you want to talk about ways to push back against ridiculous regulation, it's probably a good place to do it. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to see and meet other entrepreneurs, because it's oftentimes hard to do, that will also take place because there's entrepreneurs who show up with ideas. If you're an investor to try to get some new ideas, run into a lot of people, lots of, Mark Skousen publishes a lot of different newsletters. Jim Woods, a friend of mine, and in fact, a supporter of what Gabe and I do with the book. Jim Woods is going to be there, and he's a guy who I follow on a regular basis on his stock picks. Again, this is not you figure out what you want to do. So he's going to be there. So there's going to be a lot of people there. So who should attend? I think if you are interested in those types of topics, and more importantly, interested in freedom, liberty, and what I think are the most important aspects of human existence, this is a great place to do it. And the why is that you're never going to meet these types of people in one place at one time without going to Freedom Fest. In fact, Freedom Fest is the only place I've been able to find it. I mean, you can find little smatterings here and there about, of libertarianism and all of that. And I know that some of you may be members of the Libertarian Party, which I am not, because again, I'm a libertarian, small L, not big L. But what I can tell you is you will meet people that you would never meet any other way. I mean, sat next to a woman a few years ago, actually, and she had flown in from Paris. And yes, that's the one in France. They have a different language over there. And she had flown in because she was a libertarian, and a libertarian in France is, somebody who's definitely on the, endangered species list, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it's filled with libertarians, but I don't think so. And it was fascinating because how would I ever met that person? So I believe anybody who wants to meet some interesting people, it's a great way to do it. And the real motivation is that for the fee that you'll pay and for the effort that will go forward, I'm going to tell you it's a really good wild ride. There's always more to do than there's time to do it. Oh, and here's another cool thing is that they record the whole thing. And for, my words, not theirs, for mere pittance, they will sell you the entire event, and they give it to you on a USB key, not at the event. They send it to you later. And you can go back and relive all those memorable moments. But it's a cool way to go listen to people that would never get to meet any other way. So if you have any inkling that this is your kind of thing and your kind of place, pack your bags, get ready to go to Rapid City, South Dakota. I know I had to go look it up on a map, but yes, it's inside of the continental U.S. Believe me, it's down by Mount Rushmore, and away you go. So with that, I just want to give you one last insight. I'm sitting at Freedom Fest, and I got to meet somebody that I don't know if I would have ever met him otherwise. I guess I could have, but it would have been kind of a little awkward. But I find out that there's this debate that's going to go on. And by the way, these are like real debates. These are people who have different views on something. There aren't a bunch of talking heads that all agree with each other. There are people who have great, vast disagreements, a delta between them. And what happened is that, somebody taps on the shoulder and says, John, you got to go see the session. And we race over, and it was Dennis Hoff, who owned the Bunny Ranch and other legal brothels in Nevada. And he was debating a guy who was talking about how you should only have sex inside of marriage. And it was a lively debate, to say the least. And all I can tell you is that, okay, how does that keep doing that in airplane mode? I have no idea. And they're calling me again. So we're just leave this in, by the way, just leave it in. So all I can say is that I don't know how I would have never met Dennis. And it was a lively debate, and the two of them went back and forth. And by the way, the guy who was in favor of this staunch status only inside of marriage, all of that, was a PhD philosophy guy, and it was heated but respectful and cordial. And all I can say is, where else are you going to get that kind of entertainment? And that was a pretty interesting thing. So go check it out. Go look at the link. And if you want to come, and then if you're there, walk up and say, hey, I saw you on the Raging Verbalist, and lively debate will ensue. So until next time, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. And for the ever lovely Sandra, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 83. And I hope all of you will consider coming to Freedom Fest, or at least checking it out and seeing if you can get your brain expanded on the importance of liberty and freedom, which I believe are the two most important aspects of human existence.